We're live.
I think we are here. Hello, everybody, if you can hear us. I'm just going to go live on Instagram as well.
Our mics are working. Maybe they're really quiet. That would be a problem. If you're in the comments, the usual thing, if you're in the comments and you can hear us, give us a thumbs up. If you can't hear us, give us a thumbs down or some kind of mention.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will just ramble to ourselves endlessly.
Maybe that's all this is going to be. We're just going to chat away to ourselves for half an hour and then leave you be.
All right, I'm going to keep tinkering in the background. Our volumes are all nice and loud here, so we should be good. Aha, hang on. Boom! Oh. We are coming to you, clipping live. Super too loud. How about that?
Yeah, just checking that you can hear us. We are live on YouTube on this camera, which is where most of our attention is going to be. But
Absolutely.
We are trying to do live on Instagram on this camera at the same time. So
loads of people joined in.
A bunch of people on Instagram. If you can't hear us very well, our audio will be better over on YouTube. So you might want to jump over to the camera that's just here.
So if we're ignoring you, we're not ignoring you. We see you, and you can put us comments on Instagram over on a phone over there. Or you can go over here on YouTube, and we will obviously see all your comments here, like Ross, who's already said hi. Thank you. You can hear us.
And we can hear us. Good.
We can hear us.
Well, I can. Can you hear us?
Something like that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. This is great. We've been long overdue live, I think.
I know. Well, so I was setting up this live yesterday or whenever it was this week, and it was not really working. And it was just showing us the last time we went live was essentially a year ago when we arrived into French Polynesia. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, it has been that long because we've been a little bit distracted with our engine story and everything this year.
Just a smidge. Yeah. And yeah, hello. Oh, hello, Gerald. Nice to see you. Rick, you're here. And on Instagram, I'm just seeing like a string of names. So,
yeah, the names are too small over on Instagram. So I'm like, I'm seeing waving hands.
And a heart. Thank you for the heart. That's very kind of you. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Good to see you again as well. And newcomer. Hello?
Newcomer, but Canadian Dave.
Oh, it's Canadian Dave.
I love this because we recognize so many people's names from commenting every week. And it's like, you do actually have a place on the boat now. Like we recognize your name. We're like, oh, yeah, it's Captain Bill, or it's Canadian Dave,
or right.
It's Tom from Australia.
It's kind of weird, to be honest. It's kind of surreal. But yeah, we thought it was about time we did a bit of an overview of, well, the engine journey and what's happened there. You've all maybe been watching that. Certainly that little trailer we made kind of sums it up. And then maybe we'll go on to talk about like some of our future plans and
as much as
projects
we know them. Whatever's going on.
All the bits and pieces.
Yeah, basically we'll just ramble about some stuff, and anytime you want to jump in with questions about engines, then just go right ahead and we will do our best to kind of track everything as it's coming up.
And Tamira asked, did you get a haircut? Which one of us got a haircut?
I did try and cut my hair. This has been like a year in the waiting. I had this great idea that I was going to cut my hair like when we crossed over the equator on our Pacific crossing, and then our Pacific crossing was just too stressful, and I thought a bad haircut would not help me mentally and emotionally in that journey.
It made me laugh.
So I did try and cut my hair. I don't have enough money for a hairdresser, and I don't know. It's not ideal, but it grows, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll come back. It's fine. And I get my hair trimmed on the sides, but this bun thing is getting a bit out of control at the moment. So
yeah, I really do need to be let loose on your hair properly to cut it. It's getting quite. It's almost longer than mine, I would say. We're gonna have to do like a.
My hair's
side by
fluffier
side.
than yours. That's my problem. If I take this thing out, I look like a lion. It goes like this. So it's not the best.
Amazing.
But, it is what it is.
Oh, hello from Norway. This is awesome.
Oh, wow.
People from all over the world. I can't work out what time it is anywhere else in the world. Most annoying time zone for anybody to watch. So I do apologize.
Yeah, if this time is, well, first of all, if you're in Australia, you're crazy. It's like 6 a.m. What's wrong with you?
Sorry.
Or earlier if you're on the other side. If you're in the UK, then I think we're competing.
Just about to go to bed before your work week starts, so we'll try not to go on for too long. Norway must be really late at night.
Actually, yeah.
Midnight or something. I don't know.
And clearly, if anyone's an F1 fan, you've got that on a second screen, because apparently that's on at the moment. My parents messaged to say, we won't be joining you because the Formula 1's on. So yeah.
Priorities.
It's a bank holiday. Oh, sweet. Okay. So everyone in Scotland,
ages.
England, Ireland, and Wales, we can all be chilling out together for a late
hours.
One. Let's go for a late one. We're going to go for a marathon sprint here, people. Okay, it's not so bad. That's cool. Well, yeah, as I said, as more people are joining, we'll just recap very quickly. We're going to do kind of an overview of the engine story, which you may have seen the trailer, or rather the episodes. And then we'll try and get into the stuff that we're planning to do moving forward, if we can figure it out ourselves.
Yeah. We were making like that little montage that you might have watched as the trailer that just was like playing before this went live. And we were just making that up this week. And we were trying to count back how many days the whole process had
Oh,
taken,
man.
because so much of what we filmed recently was just like the month spent in the marina, and then we were like, but actually the engine problem as a whole has been this like underlying stress in the background of our lives for so long, and it is, I think, over a year ago now. It's just over a
Just
year,
tipped a year now. Yeah.
because it's almost
Yeah.
a year since we arrived into French Polynesia, and the engine broke many weeks before we actually got here. And yeah, it's quite a journey.
It's surreal. Yeah, I mean, when we did that little ticker counter, we realized, yeah, 300 days was when we came to you guys, frankly, and we said, look, the journey's done. Like, we can't do anything about it. So it was the roller coaster. Although we try and tell it in video, you guys feel like you're along with the ride. The roller coaster is very raw at times, and that was certainly a low point. And then to see how you guys all rallied for us, and Patreon, you guys are legends, seriously.
Oh my goodness.
And tip jar, if you were involved in the tip jar side of things, that was kind of a new thing for us to do, because we realized some people don't want to do Patreon, and that's fine. But yeah, we were like, I don't know, we'll have to put our cap out and just say, if you want to see this keep going. And seriously, wow, thank you so much, all of you.
It's just crazy. Like, so much of what we do is just the two of us on a boat, mucking around or giving something a go or trying something new, but we don't really always know who's watching on the other side of the screen, kind of thing. And
absolutely,
to see that not only people are watching and enjoying the story, but that you want to see it continue, and so much so that you are reaching out with like messages of support or donating on Tipjar or joining Patreon, it absolutely blew us away, because we just were not expecting that whatsoever. We kind of landed in Hiva Oa, and it really hit us hard that we thought, we can't see a way forward for this. Yeah. And then to have that just rescued out of thin air was absolutely amazing.
And bear in mind, we're a small channel, right? So the fact that we kind of just figure we're just doing this and hopefully people see it maybe and spread the word. But like, I'm looking, hello from North Carolina, hello from Arizona, Jeff. Oh, hey Jeff. Sorry, I just saw your hello from Arizona. But yeah, Jeff, who we got in touch with, we're chatting away, and like, all of you, Stephen McLeod, you're here. Like, people from all over the planet suddenly popped out of nowhere, and we're like, wow, okay, actually, maybe this little adventure we're on in the storytell actually means something to some people, which it's kind of humbling. Let's just put it that way. It's very humbling.
Yeah.
So seriously, thank you all, and of course, Scold. But yeah, so seriously, thank you all so much for that. And from that point, that was back in Hiva Oa, which, if you look at a Google Earth, if you want a second screen this and open up Google Maps or something, basically go to the very center of the Pacific and zoom in, and you get French Polynesia. And then
it'll look just plain blue for a very long time as you zoom in, and eventually there will be like little tiny island that pops up.
And if you go to the kind of north of that, you get this tinier little island, and that's where we were when we realized that this was kind of the end of the journey. And we thought, well, A, how the heck do we get out of here? B, the boat's not going to be kind of worth anything if we try and sell it with no engines.
Yeah.
So it really was the scary kind of tipping point. But
so many people came in trying to be helpful advice, like, well, why don't you just sail to Seattle and do the work there? And we were like, I get the sort
of lovely idea.
You look at a map and you're like, well, where's the closest place that might be easier? But that journey is quite a big one, and we've just done quite a big one to get here. And yeah, being in the middle of nowhere definitely added in multiple layers of challenge that we couldn't just overcome and just, we'll just hop to the next country.
I'm just seeing Denise Davies' comment here saying that you sailed for years and now own a 65 smug pot with two 12-cylinder diesels. I can't read. That's insane. Okay, wow. Yeah, sorry. That now means something to us, whereas before we were like, oh, the noisy things at the back that we never turn on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's impressive. Now for us, it was a case of looking at these dead old Yanmars and saying, yeah, they have no life left in them. And then, being us, we decided we couldn't sail to Seattle. That would be quite a long circuit back.
Yes.
Or anywhere in North America. So instead, we kind of fought our way through the Tuamotus, the little remote islands in the middle of nowhere, which you might remember seeing.
I'm so glad we did it. But looking back, like, there were so many moments where we probably shouldn't have done that. Like, going through some of those passes where you're the only boat for hundreds of miles. So if you get it wrong, like, you're really screwed.
Yeah.
And you've got like current either like fighting against you and with one engine. I think at one point, maybe even on our first pass, we were fighting such a strong current that we were going at 0.8 knots.
Which is like really slow if you don't do sailing.
What's walking, like 3 knots or something? No, maybe not. I don't know. Very slow.
Very slow. Like snail, slightly above snail speed. Maybe double snail. 2 snail speed. And it was painfully slow. And then we would I remember we went into one atoll, and the current was so strong that the boat got caught by the current, and we ended up doing loops. So as we go up through this atoll, we were just doing circles, and you can see it in our track. It's hilarious. These constant circles, just trying to stay on course.
Yeah, because we had our starboard engine. So if you go forward on starboard, but your port engine isn't moving forward, you just turn left, basically. So if the current caught us and pushed us a little bit left, we couldn't steer back around this way. So we would just go further and further and eventually be like, screw it, we're going all the way around.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just seeing even more people coming in here. We've got Nevada. We've got all sorts of places saying hi. This is great.
Engines are overrated.
Yes, fair shout. Old engines are overrated. New engines are certainly well rated.
Oh my goodness, yes. Such a difference these days.
Yeah, it's transformed everything. So yeah, with the beating through all of the atolls, and at one point we had did we have a 9 knot? No, it's 7 knots of current pushing us out of an atoll.
Yeah, we were
at 9 knots.
We were in this atoll where
fast.
We arrived and there was nothing. There was no village or anything, completely uninhabited. But there were 2 or 3 other boats there, and it was not protected whatsoever because the place where you could anchor was just behind a sandbar, so there were no trees or anything. And we got there just before sunset, and we dropped anchor, and we thought, oh, this is great. And then the next day, all 3 other boats left. We were like, oh, okay, interesting. And then we sort of spent a lovely day just enjoying the beach and looking around.
Oblivious.
And then we sort of thought, well, let's just check the weather a little bit more closely. And with the weather, and we saw why everybody had left, because there was some bigger winds coming in, and it wasn't going to be anything
Nothing
too
scary.
Horrendous, but we were in a place where there was 0 protection. So we were like, well, we're here now, so we could wait here and just hope for the best. But if we drag and hit the reef, or if anything goes wrong, because we know of a few boats that has happened to, we're on our own, and there's nobody around to help us in this entire atoll. So that's 100 miles in either direction.
Yeah.
So we looked at the tide tables, and we had about an hour to make it out the pass at the last tide change of the day before it got dark. And we were like, should we do it? If we do it, we've got to go now, or it's now or never. We've just got to sit
or do
here
it in the
and stay
dark.
Here.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, not going to happen. So yeah, we ran for it, and it wasn't the easiest.
It was a close call once or twice.
But we made it.
Yeah, basically we had to maintain speed faster than the current. Otherwise the boat has no steering anymore. That's kind of how boats work in a way. And so yeah, we had to go at essentially 9 knots, which is I think 2 snail pace. 2 snail power is very slow. This should be
9 knots.
9 knots. That's what?
Greyhound, but not in full race mode.
Hungry Greyhound.
Hungry Greyhound.
We're going Hungry Greyhound speed, but with only one engine. So we could obviously, Hungry Greyhound could veer off and slam into the wall.
Which you do if they're not paying attention, and they're like, oh, food this way, woo!
Well, a bit like when those dogs are asleep and they start running in their sleep, and then they wake up and run at the wall. Anyway, it would be a bit like that. So yeah, there was a couple of moments that were more sketchy, and then we finally made it to Tahiti, obviously, and that's where the whole engine journey kind of started to get some traction.
And I've just remembered, and I've sort of...
By the way, hi, Anne. We do know where you're from. We know where you're from, Anne Reid. We know you. Sorry, Karen.
Homeland representative. Yeah, I think back to all of these stages of the journey, and I'm like, there's so many parts that I had just forgotten. So I was clearing out some old footage the other day, and when we got to Tahiti, we actually met with a couple of mechanics, and we filmed it, and we never showed you because we filmed it saying, oh my goodness, we've just made it to Tahiti, and this guy's going to come over today, and he's going to help us rebuild the engine. And then he would come over and take a look and be like, guys, you can't rebuild that. That's just not going to happen. And then we'd be like, oh no. And our hearts would just fall through the floor again. And that happened 2 or 3 times where we got our hopes up thinking, we made it to Tahiti. It's 1,000 miles from where we hit land in the Marquesas. And we got here.
Reached land.
Reached land. We did not hit it. We nearly did because we
glanced.
Got very close to a reef one day, but it was fine.
It's another story.
And yeah, so we honestly thought that we were going to get to Tahiti and then be able to make the old engines work, and it was maybe slightly foolish thinking on our behalf.
Optimistic, let's just put it that way.
But yeah, we had a few more stumbles and hurdles to get past as more and more people were like, no, seriously guys, this is never coming back to life. You've got to deal with it.
I just need to do a little break. So Instagram has been getting a bit busier, just so you remember, people on YouTube, people on Instagram. Hey, the guys on Instagram. First of all, hello, Mr. Holt. How you doing? Nice to see you again. We actually have Nanni Australia over on Instagram right now, which is amazing.
Hi guys.
How's it going? Thank you for joining us. I know it's really early for you, so well done. We understand if you have to fall off and fall asleep again. That makes perfect sense. But we're on Instagram and YouTube, and we were saying to everyone on Instagram that the audio is slightly better, I think, on YouTube. So if you get annoyed with the vertical thing, or we sound terrible, or we're looking over here, we're not ignoring you. We're talking to everyone on this side. So just so you know where everyone's at. I don't want to ignore people over here because it's like a really busy feed of people joining and saying things, and I keep missing.
Yeah, we're trying to keep track of the people in the comments, but
Bonkery's represented, no less.
Bonkery.
Bonkery.
Love it.
Bit of Scottish for you. So yeah, part of this is we can just rabbit on forever. I think you know that about us. But if you have any questions as well, we've had patrons firing in questions for the last while, and we'll answer any of the ones that pop up here that we catch as they come past. It's still kind of humbling to see so many places. Peebles is represented. Kathy and Lauren are here.
Oh, we've got like the entire country of Scotland is just
Pretty
all
much
present here.
every
This
corner
awesome.
is represented somewhere in this feed. This is great. So yeah, where were we at in the general story of things? So obviously we then had we had to secure. We had to figure out what we were going to do. So we flew out to Southampton Boat Show, which was a weird decision to make when we were kind of bone skint. We actually already booked flights before, like way before. I can't remember if we did that.
We knew back in the Caribbean, like every time we sailed to a new country, we were like, are the flights cheaper from here to get back home to Scotland? And at one point, we really wanted to fly home before we set off on our Pacific crossing. That's because right. It was just that much closer. It was going to be an extra 4,000 miles that we'd have to fly. And we were so sure that was going to be easier, but it's actually really difficult to fly from the UK to Panama. Or Colombia or Aruba or any of the countries that we had been in recently. And so we'd not been home in like 3 years, 3.5 years.
3.5 years we hadn't been back to the UK, yeah.
And suddenly when we arrived here, or when we were planning to come here, a friend of ours told us about this like budget long distance airline.
I tried to work this one out. So like in Europe, that would be like Flybe, like level airline. In the US, like is WestJet a cheap airline?
Spirit.
Can somebody confirm like a budget you don't get baggage kind of airline?
Yeah, you have to pay for a meal and pay for a seatbelt, pay to use a bathroom, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Imagine flying from like London to Asia on
20,
one of those.
It was 21. Was it 21 hours? 21 hours.
21 hours. That was a delight.
21 hours. Oh man, old man Gibb, thank you so much. That's really kind of you.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, we're gonna need some sunscreen. So like it was 21 hours, budget airline, pay for your meals, you're not allowed baggage.
There you go, Spirit or Southwest if you're in the US. Or
there you go.
Allegiant Air. I've never even heard of that one, which shows you how brilliant
How many seats do they have on their planes? Like Allegiant Air sounds like one of these tiny little prop planes.
I was so nervous about getting on this flight. I was like, are you kidding me? 21 hours. We upgraded our tickets so that we could take a suitcase with us.
Yeah.
And so that we would get one meal in these 21 hours. Except I have food allergies, and I emailed the airline and I was like, can you tell me what the ingredients are in the meal? And then I can eat all the bits that I can eat, and I'll just skip the bit that I can't. And they were like, no, we couldn't possibly tell you what food goes into it. I was like, 21 hours with no food. That's the biggest issue.
Yeah, that was serious. We actually, I think our one hand baggage became this bag of snacks, which was just so bad because it was like sweets, Haribo biscuits.
Yeah, everything. More than our like allowance for baggage was just on food.
And then so 21 hours of budget airline. Bear in mind, we've only been in the tropics for the last 3.5 years, and we were flying back to the UK with an intention of going to Scotland. And I know Denise in particular, maybe Anne, you'll also tease us for this because it's cold there.
Oh my goodness, it was so cold. And we actually, because we were flying from French Polynesia, their budget airline goes to Paris. So we had to land in Paris and spend a night there before we flew home. And we arrived in Paris and they were having a heat wave. And we were like, well, this'll do. It was like 35 degrees, which is like 90 degrees Fahrenheit or something. And we were like, yeah, okay, we feel at home. This is great. Maybe we didn't need to bring our winter clothes. And literally, that was the last day of the heat wave. And we flew to the UK the next day, and everyone was raving about how warm it had been. And we were just sitting there absolutely shivering.
Shivering to death. I have to just put in, they didn't make us sit in the wing. I just answering some of these comments that came through there. Brilliant. They didn't make us sit in the wing, but I do like the fact that Kuma 2, who you might have heard of, we talk about them quite a lot. They're good friends, Manny and Joe. And apparently Joe used to fuel the guys in Allegiant, and he says he would never fly on them. So that if we have an Allegiant loyalty partner with us, I'm very sorry to say that, but yeah, maybe that's
not us saying that.
We didn't
just
say
passing on the knowledge.
Just to let you know. So yeah, it was a mission, and then a night in Paris, which sounds glamorous, but basically we were comatose, and then freezing to death in the UK. And that's when we went to the Southampton Boat Show, because we've been invited. Weirdly, we were invited to the Southampton International Boat Show, which is like the UK's biggest boat show, or international. I can't remember.
Yeah,
got some accolade to it. And essentially we just told kind of the Red Sea story, which was really fun over 2
We did 2 separate sessions on their little stage for sharing stories, and we were like, well, we haven't been in the UK for 3 years, and we've never been to a boat show before, so we're not going to have a following here. So we're going to be talking to an empty room, and that's okay. We just have to like get on with it.
Yeah, we can stonewall it. That's easy.
And then I don't know, I think just as people walked past and heard the ridiculousness of our Pacific crossing and the ridiculousness of our buying a boat,
it was kind of an and then type story. So every couple of sentences were like, and then.
And then we'd just catch a few more people, and by the end of it, the whole place was just absolutely stacked out,
great.
like standing room only.
But it was weird because that was kind of, we'd been invited to do the talk, but our kind of goal, if you like, was to go around like the vendors of the boat show and get to know some people, because we've never been to a boat show until that point.
Yeah, I had no idea what to expect. And you've done trade shows before with work. And so I was like, oh, okay, I've got to get into this like work mentality. It's going to be really exhausting. It's going to be like, it's going to feel like work. It's going to be kind of boring and not very fun, but we have to do it.
It was exhausting.
It was absolutely exhausting. We both got crazy ill afterwards, but it was so much fun.
It was great.
It was absolutely brilliant. And as Ross says, not just because we got to meet some really cool people there. So Ross, one of my patrons, came to the talk and came and said hi afterwards.
Actually, I don't know if you came to the talk. Come to think of it, we met you
that's true.
afterwards.
I didn't see you there.
I have a feeling you just wanted it. You timed it for the end. You're like, oh, I'll just see you at the end. Oh, great work, guys. It was actually really cool because also you introduced us to
the bumbling sailor.
The bumbling sailor as well. We never met him, so it was really nice to meet him as well. So it was really nice to connect with people there for the first time for us. Again, remember, we've been living on this boat for 3.5 years. We hadn't been off it really to meet people, so it was kind of a shell shock meeting Ross. Oh, you have photo evidence. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, it was a shell shock meeting you, sir. And and just the general notion. But we started going around the boat show just trying to see like what this boating world is about. Because we've been gluing Indy back together with the knowledge we had when we left the UK and when we Google search. And actually, it was really interesting to see the different things that are taking off. Electric power for inboard and outboard motors has some way to go, but it starts to appear in the market. That's really cool. And then it was actually through friends of ours at the Sail Hub who told us we should head over to the Nanni stand, which was the representative in the UK for Nanni is a company called
AR Peachman.
AR Peachman, that's right. And so we went over to them, and we're like, oh, I don't even heard where we're at with our story, but I think we should have a conversation. And those guys, like representing Nanni, incredible. Like instantly, they went, okay, great. What have you got now? How hard do you use your engines? Where are you traveling? What kind of maintenance are you doing? Took us through the whole journey of understanding the situation, and then started pointing out the different engines they had on the stand and what was available, how they glue it together as a package.
It was such a surreal moment because it was like we were so excited for flying home to see family and friends that we hadn't seen in 3 years. But at the same time, we had this whole kind of thing of our boat is sitting back in Tahiti in a heap, and we're not really sure what's going to go on with that. And so this was like the first real glimmer of hope that we had for, there could be a solution here. Like this could work out something. We could actually get a new engine and put it in our boat, and then we could carry on sailing. Wouldn't that be amazing? And it was sort of so removed because we were not at home. We weren't on our boat. We were however 10,000 miles away from what is now home. And it was just all like every single emotion going on at once.
Absolutely. So we kind of went back to our friends where we were staying that night, and we plastered together a bit of a plan and explaining who we were, what we were doing, and we submitted that, if you like, to AR Peachman, who kindly said, we'll take this to Nanni, we'll have a conversation, we'll see what we can do. And then we kind of, to be honest, we weren't expecting anything of that because, we're, as you said, a small channel, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and, what do they care? And kind of amazingly, I think it was a week later they got back in touch.
Yeah, it wasn't long.
It wasn't long. And they said, okay, we've been chatting with Nanni. We think we can make something happen here. Let's talk. Let's try and organize something. And then, it kind of went around the houses from there for a little bit longer. There's a lot more story between where we're at in this story now and where we ended up. But that was kind of the spark. That was when we realized that Nanni was a really promising option.
Yeah.
And we started researching properly to understand Nanni engines, because just to break away from this, I don't know if we explained this properly at the time, but modern marine engines, if you want to call it that, there's kind of two types. Like there's Apple and there's Windows. It's kind of like that. There's common rail, and then there's naturally aspirated. I don't know if that's actually.
That sounds good.
I tell you what, Nanni Australia, give us the two terms, because I don't quite know how to define them. Essentially, common rail are smart engines. They're covered in sensors, and they have a computer that runs them. So everything has to talk to the computer, and the computer decides if the engine is going to run. And then there's the other type, which I'm hoping somebody can enlighten us to the correct term. But there's the other type, which essentially is more mechanical. So as long as it has, I think we said this in the installation video, it has diesel, it has cooling, and it has, well, I suppose air and fuel. Fuel is diesel. Diesel, cooling, and air, pretty much, then it should run. And we can kind of manipulate to make it work. If we have to do any maintenance, we can kind of bypass things to find out what's wrong. Common rail, you kind of can't touch it. If you touch it, it shuts down and it doesn't want to start again. So we knew that we wanted to go the mechanical road. And if anyone's not into engines, I promise you I won't ramble on too long.
It's all right. We don't know enough to ramble on too long.
This is very true. Oh, here we go. Electronic injected, and then you have mechanical. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's Pete saving the day. Okay, yeah. So we went the mechanical injected or injection option. That was the goal. That way we could maintain the engines ourselves in the middle of nowhere. It was safe to do so, and we didn't have to worry about unplugging something and the whole engine saying, I'm not going to start until some authorized mechanic turns up. They'd let some clowns work on it. So this was like the perfect option for us. It really was the perfect choice.
Yeah.
I appreciate that input, by the way. Nanni Australia, Peter, is an absolute legend. So if you haven't introduced yourselves to him, whether or not you're buying an engine, go say hi to this guy. He's incredible. We cannot say nicer things about him.
The number of weekends that we've stolen from him, I'm so sorry. Like during the install phase, we were like, oh, we're doing our best, but we just can't figure this out.
Peter, sorry, we're stupid, but how does this work? And he's always been so polite and patient with us, which is great. And I'm going to jump back into comments for a second because there's been questions coming up, as well as Brett. I want to thank you very much for that donation. That's really kind of you. Thank you. So, well, first of all, the comment, where is it? Oh, it's gone. Stephen McLeod said that apparently there's a, here we go. Allegiance Airlines apparently have 6 wrecked aircraft at the end of the runway near his place in Bangor Marine. Maine, excuse me. That's a sign not to fly with them, I think.
So if we've learned anything from this live today,
there you go. Do not fly. Can we diss an airline? Is that a good idea?
Oh man, now they're not going to sponsor us.
I know, yeah, right. Other airlines do exist. And then the other one from Ian Newton here was asking, so why did we pick Leopard? So this is maybe a good point to jump out, actually, explain why we picked Leopard and why we ended up on Indioko. So obviously, if you've seen the earlier episodes, you'll know the whole journey of how we ended up on Indioko. But choosing this boat was an interesting one. We kind of did it backwards.
We definitely went around buying a boat in completely the wrong way, which now that you know us will come as absolutely no surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
We love to research everything. We feel like our time and our money is limited. And so when we spend either, we want to make the most out of whatever it is that we're doing. And so we go massively overboard on researching whatever it is that we're going to do. Which
to our detriment.
I was going to say may not always come across in our attitude sometimes.
If it's like an investment, we don't have a lot of money to spare. So we tend to be fairly careful in going through all the options, which is why, for example, the Nanni conversation is really important because we didn't just go, yay, an engine. We were like, okay, it's nice, it's blue, but what does that mean? And we kind of looked across the whole market to decide if it was the right option for us. But with the boat, it was kind of that. We'd never set foot on a catamaran. No. And we started looking online and we watched videos and all the sort of typical research. And we came across this design and this layout and the hull shapes and started analyzing it a bit. And I certainly kind of fell in love with the design pretty quickly.
We had a short list of certain things that we wanted in a boat. And this ticked almost every single box. Pretty much. The ones that it didn't tick were sort of minor, or we could change them, or we could get by without them and things like that.
So the main summary points, because we won't go into this in too much detail right now, we can talk about it again another time. We wanted a slightly older catamaran, which sounds a bit silly. Basically, from our kind of perceptions, catamaran design was getting really, really strong. It kind of goes in swings. So what they do is catamarans typically, they swing towards performance cats. And that's good because they're really fast and everyone gets to show off and they get foiling and all sorts. And then they start to flip over because they're quite unstable. And then what happens is the designers go, oh, wow, okay, that's a bit scary. Let's go back the other way. And then they start going more and more towards the kind of, what do they call it? Floating condo, the kind of brick on the water that doesn't really sail, but it's very, very stable. And then everyone goes, well, this is super slow and kind of pointless. And so it goes back to the performance. And essentially one of those generational changes took place around 2008. Yeah. where it was tied in with actually global recessions. So essentially, boats were getting more and more they were getting more and more comfortable, if you like, or more and more stable and solid boats. And then the financial recession kicked in, and the only people buying boats were charter houses. And so as a result, all the boats became floating bricks. And we didn't want to go that way.
Yeah, like that's great if you're trying to fit 8 or 10 people on a catamaran for a week, but not great if you're actually trying to sail anywhere, which if you're on a charter, it doesn't really matter because you're not covering huge miles. And so we were like, well, there's only going to be 2 of us and we want to cover the miles. So we don't want to go too far to that end of the spectrum. We want a cat so we've got space, but we want it to be a blue water cruiser. And so this just fell in the sweet spot. But we definitely kind of decided on that before we'd ever seen one in real life. We had looked at 100 of like floor plans and like
so silly.
photoshopped them and zoomed in on them, and we knew it. Like I could have walked through a Leopard 47 with my eyes closed, having never actually seen one.
Yeah. But essentially, we were after something pre-2008, something that could sail pretty well. So this kind of ticked a lot of boxes for its shape, if you like. And then we really wanted something that was shaft driven, which if you've been watching the engine episodes, you know, basically our engines are connected by a metal bar to the propeller. The alternative design that's very popular in the more condo style cats is something called sail drive, which is a far more common thing now. And that's where the engine is actually pushed back and there's like a little Z shape and the props down there. We didn't want that simply because it actually requires more maintenance. We have to haul out every 1 to 2 years. They're prone to leaking and corroding, and they're quite expensive to maintain. Whereas,
and then if you do hit something,
it can literally...
so your sail drive is coming straight out the bottom of the boat. If you do hit something and it sort of slices up through your hull,
literally like a can opener,
it's just gonna like cut straight through, massive hole, big problem. Whereas a shaft drive is at an angle, so it's not going to do that as much.
It'll bend the shaft most likely and lose the prop. So it's a little bit easier it's a little bit safer, a little bit easier to maintain. And generally speaking, for us and the type of sailing we wanted to do, it made more sense. The other thing it does is it means the rudder, this gets really boring really fast. This is when it gets scientific. Okay, so the rudder on most sail drive with that Z shape is unprotected. So it's just like, it looks like an orca's fin, Whereas on this boat and a lot of shaft-driven boats, the rudder actually has what's called a skeg, which is kind of like a fixed piece of hull in front of it. And then the rudder actually hangs, so a fixed piece, and then the rudder hangs behind it and can turn. And that means that if we were to snag any nets or worst case hit some rocks, the rudder is more protected because it'll hit that skeg first. And then the rudder kind of just remains in position. So there's lots of little safety points like that we went for. So kind of in summary, because we'll go into way too much detail.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's kind of why we ended up on Indioko. And the journey of getting Indioko is a whole different story.
But that also answers the question. If you do go back and watch our first 10 episodes, then...
why the heck are these idiots?
It does explain why when we looked for a Leopard 47 and then when options seemed to be closing themselves down to us, we didn't just look for a different boat in the same island that we were in. It sort of had to widen the net in terms of the geography, but we were still fixed on a Leopard 47, and then that's where we ended up on this one. So it was it was annoying because it meant we had to travel further to look for boats because they were like, oh, there's only 5 Leopard 47s in the world for sale right now.
Felt like that, sure.
Yeah.
So we nearly had to figure out a way to fly from Karaku, the tiny little island, to Thailand, which wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But that was quite fun. I just have to enjoy Rick's comment here where he's like, it's not kind of like when you pull over the car, if the engine shuts down on you.
Oh, yeah, right.
And you just get an Uber. I'm not sure maybe Uber helicopters, they do that now. Maybe the Uber helicopter. No, I don't think it's really an option on a boat. But yeah, you're quite right. It's picking an engine. In our case, the 2 engines we've gone with where they will not shut down and refuse to talk to us, which is nice.
Yeah, because I think we've demonstrated that our preference is to go to the remote places to live off-grid as much as possible, and we don't want to be next to a service. Resources that would allow us to fix these things. Yeah. We like to make life difficult for ourselves.
Absolutely, that's it. So yeah, and I'm also really keen. Stephen McLeod. There is a chance. Stephen is an incredible guy. If you've never come across Stephen, he's been on Parley quite a few times. And I think Denise is asking, he might be on Parley right now. I don't know. That'd be quite fun if he is.
Yeah. We first met him. So when we crossed the Pacific at the same time as like Delos and Parley Revival, and everybody landed on the same island in the Marquesas at the same time. And Parley came and anchored next door, and Stephen already watched our channel, so he swam over to say hi.
Yes, that's right.
It's like
It was
a
very,
merging of
very rude.
worlds.
He snorkeled over and grabbed the back steps. I was like, "Hey guys, hi! I watched your show." Like, what? Like, you came from Parley. What are you talking about? But yeah, he's a lovely, lovely guy. So if you are, I think you're still here. But yeah, if you're not, you're probably enjoying Parley at the moment, somewhere in New Zealand. I think they're down in, right?
Yeah, I just finished their circumnavigation.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really cool. So yeah, so we were in Southampton. We'd spoken with Nanni in the UK, and then we actually then left Southampton Boat Show and went up to Scotland, where we had our first ever patron meetup, which was incredible.
Oh, that was so
It
cool.
was so nice to meet everybody there. We did it in style because we're in Scotland, and because my dad quite likes his whiskey, we managed to blag a room in the what's it called?
The Scottish,
like the Royal
Whiskey
Scottish Whisky
Society.
Society, which is basically
Yeah.
like a snug pub where all the walls are lined with like rare whiskey bottles and little wire cages where you can lock your own bottle in this little sort of a keep, I think they call it.
That's amazing.
And it is very cool. And there were some nice photos from it and a really fun evening with everybody. They had these big, huge wingback armchairs that were quite a feature of the night.
Well, they were orange, so they were very Red Seas branded as
There you
well.
and it was a really fun night just to get to meet some people, because obviously we'd met Ross down at Southampton Boat Show, which was nice. And he thought about coming up for a whiskey, I know that. But but yeah, so we met everyone else. Denise, you were there, so it was really nice to meet you as well. And yeah, it was just it was really cool to be there at that moment where we still had no idea if the journey was going to continue, but we kind of had a glimmer of hope, and we had a recognition of, wait, these people actually know the story of what we're up to. We're not just out here on our own.
Yeah.
So it really meant a lot, because just as a side, all the comments on our videos and stuff, and all the Patreon comments that we chat with you guys back and forth, that's where we realize that we're not just filming and talking to ourselves, because it might seem weird because maybe we're in your living room or on your phone right now, but we are just talking to a very small green dot right now. And it is very strange to realize that there are people on the other side, which is why I keep glancing down from the camera to look at this comment thread to be like, are people still here? And so, yeah, for us, it was a really, I would go as far as say touching moment.
It was, yeah. So before this live, we also asked our patrons if they had any questions, and we've got a list of those as well. And
we need to get onto those. Yeah.
I know you can control
Sorry,
that
I got
better
a
than
mouse
I
back
can.
here that's big.
Denise was saying, apart from getting off the dock again, what was the best part of the whole engine replacement experience? And I was thinking about this morning. I think actually the thing that made it so special was the patrons through the whole time. So we started this on our Pacific crossing, where we wrote a daily blog with a whole ton of photos every day of our Pacific crossing. And it started out just as like a way to sort of separate one day from another, because when you're out there, time kind of stands still and everything sort of merges all into one. And then it became quite a bigger thing when everything went wrong. And we did it again for our engine replacement. And so just for the time that we were on the dock in the marina, every single day we wrote a blog post with photos of what we had done that day. And it was brilliant, because every day we would meet a challenge, because we were taking on this thing that we had no idea how to do. And we would kind of get stuck on something and share the things we'd tried. So we had like this one little tiny seized bolt that took us 4 days to get off. And every night we would be writing up to patrons with sharing photos and be like, okay, well, today we tried fire and that didn't work.
It was literally fire, brimstone, everything we could think of was getting thrown at this thing, and everyone was chipping in suggestions, which is amazing, because turns out all of you guys have way more experience than us.
So much knowledge. And we would wake up the next morning with no plan whatsoever of how we were going to progress, and we would just go to our patron comments, and everybody had come in being like, okay, well, you've tried this, maybe do it this way, or try that tool, or if you're really in a pinch, this might work. And so we would just try all of those suggestions that day.
Great.
And it really did feel like not only was everybody there with us, but they were, massively having an impact on the project that we were doing. So it really felt like a community. It really felt like we weren't just on our own. And that kind of stemmed from meeting everybody at the boat shows and at our patron meetups back in the UK. Yeah,
and I do like the fact that Ross is asking, when's the next meetup on the boat going to be? We're going to have to work something out, because it's a long flight. 21 hours on a budget airline.
21 hours, baby!
Maybe we can work something out at some point. We do need to do some cleaning before we bring everyone on board. I'll be totally ashamed. But it would be quite fun to figure something out sometime soon. I just don't know where would be best in the planet. It's kind of weird to figure that one out.
I know. Well, doing our world tour, as we cheekily called it,
Yes.
we know just how spread out all of our supporters and patrons are, because
all of you guys.
we went to like England, Scotland, and then the US, and then we left Annapolis, and we were like, oh my
Oh,
goodness,
that's so weird.
that was so much fun, but I'm so exhausted just from like being so social this whole time. It'd been like 6 weeks that we were away or something,
Yeah.
and we were like, well, at least now we can just go back to the boat, and we're not going to get recognized, and we don't have
And
to
just go back to normal, be
it'll
human
just
again.
be regular life again. And then we got to the boat, and we just went out in the dinghy to get to shore somewhere, and we got back to an Instagram message. I've just seen you go past in your dinghy. I think it's you guys. I watch your channel.
It
Like,
was weird.
oh no.
So very, very surreal. But and actually, we just skipped through Annapolis, but that was kind of, again, there was some development on the engine story there.
Yes.
I want to keep bringing us back to that, because
I
that's
know,
kind of
sorry,
what
I
we're talking
keep
about today.
Distracting.
So yeah, since we got to Scotland, we did the Patreon meetup. We did a couple more sort of those talks that we were doing around the place. That was really fun. We did one in like the
Yeah.
Royal Northern and Clyde Yacht Club.
Oh, it was so posh. It was brilliant.
It was very cool. We felt very out of place because we walked up like this, and everyone's like proper club ties and all that stuff.
Yes.
It was a fun evening. But yeah, from there, the conversation between AR Peachman, the UK representatives of Nanni, and Nanni, who are over in France, that had been ongoing. That had been carrying on. And in that conversation, essentially, they'd gone, okay, the best way to support you guys isn't from the UK distributor of the product. It isn't even from France. The best way to get you guys support is to get you engines from Australia. And that's where Nanni Australia come into the picture.
And I was so glad that we didn't have to sail to Australia to get that done.
That's it. We weren't too sure initially, and then it all kind of came together. Basically, that's when we first met Peter, and he said, hey, I'm Nanni Australia. Let's get you guys sorted out. Let's see what you need. He already had the brief, I think, from AR Peachman's conversation with us. So he'd already got a head start.
Yeah.
And incredibly, and this is one of the things that we found really good about Nanni, is they already had stock. So he was like, yeah, we can get you 2 engines shipped out in no time. Where do you need them?
Yeah, it was suddenly like, you don't need to wait for other things to fall into place. It's just, if you can make this work, then we'll just hit go on it.
Yeah.
And everything will just start moving.
Which was great, because we're like, oh yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Peter. And I think you might still be around here. This is where we're going to be honest and disclose something. At this point, we're going, oh, fantastic. Yes, absolutely. We just don't have any money.
I really want to do this, but we can't
afford it. And so that's when the panic kicked in, because it's like someone's literally dangling the carrot right there. And we realized we still had a ways to go. And so you guys, again, stepped up to the plate incredibly. And, you know, some of the people here in the comments feed really stepped up, and we are so, so grateful for that.
Yeah.
We had some anonymous donors. We had tip jar, we had patron, like people just totally rallied around us at this point. And that is, we can't thank you guys enough, honestly.
That's why we are still on the boat.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. That's why we're moving again.
Exactly.
It's just unreal.
It's surreal. So basically, I think I did have this number and I've forgotten it now, but from the point we kind of said, we need your help here, I think we were in a position to place the order, like, I don't know, 200 days later? I can't remember.
Oh, way less than that. You're thinking 300 days was from when the engine broke to when the new ones arrived.
You're right.
It was like a month.
A month or two. It was fast, really fast. Yeah, that's right. It was like a month. Basically, you guys rallied around, and within a month, with what we did have available to us and what was kindly donated in our direction, we're like, I think we can make this happen. And so we were able to kind of more honestly go back to Peter at Nanni Australia and be like, yep, let's hit go on that order. Admittedly, still going, quick, get the last few pennies together. I think I can sell a kidney.
Yeah.
But it all came together, and yeah, all of a sudden, these 2 shiny blue engines were on their way, which then just opened up the whole journey of actually installing them, where the marina in Tahiti, they don't take reservations. So
I know that we don't massively plan ahead, but there are certain times when we do like to do that, like booking our Panama Canal transit and things like that. And booking a place for the engines to arrive to the boat was quite high on the priority list. And then we had a month where the engines had left Australia and they were on their way, and we could track them, and we knew they were about to arrive. And the marina was still saying, yeah, but we don't have any space because nobody's left. And basically, you can't book ahead. You have to wait for another boat to leave. And then if you're quick enough, you can go in and take their slot. But if you're not quick enough and someone else gets in there first, even if you've been waiting longer, that's fine. And so, yeah, we just sat like every day, every couple of days going into the marina, have you got space now? Please, please, the engines are coming on this day. Please let us in. And yeah, they tried to put us on a floating dock. At first, they were like, oh, that's fine. We've got a work stock, no problem. And we were like, oh, this is great news. That's all we need. We don't need to be in like the nice bit of the marina. We don't need like water connection or power or anything.
It was basically a dinghy dock that was like some plastic floats strung together that you tie off to.
So it was like this high above the water. So we weren't really going to be able to tie to it.
And if you stood on it, it wobbled around like, floats would.
And then it was shorter than our boat. And then also because it was basically a dinghy dock, they had built like a big concrete structure underneath the water, so it was too shallow for us to fit in anyway.
So it wasn't going to happen. So negotiations went on, and eventually we got put where you saw in the videos on that sort of end of the dock, which wasn't really made for people to hang around very long. So it was a bit risky when the weather closed in and so on. And yeah, we set about tearing out 2 engines, and I noticed someone asking about the generator as well. So all of that got taken out the boat and put on the dock side, and the very glamorous dock looked very concerned as we were dumping large lumps of rust onto their dock side and apparently not moving them. And then, yeah, that was all going fairly swimmingly, I think. Well, you saw it. Swimmingly might be a
well, it went so well at first. We came into the marina and like at lunchtime, whatever day it was, we came in, and that afternoon we were like, right, let's get down to it. No reason to hesitate. Generator, out we come. And by the end of the day, it was on the dock, and we were like, this is amazing.
We're great at this. We're really good at this.
Tomorrow, we're going to take the first engine out of the boat. And then 4 days later, we were still trying to tackle this one bolt. And we were like, uh-oh.
Yeah, this isn't great news. So yeah, I just saw somebody mentioned it's land stress versus water stress. Yes, we were absolutely feeling kind of a combination at this point because we're on the water and it's water issues, and we're somehow trying to deal with the kind of logistics of land movements, which we're not very good at. So yeah, we started sort of attacking bolts and chopping things up, and eventually we got both engines out and on the dock, and that's when we actually hit the speed bump. And we tell this in real time. We genuinely found out at that point that customs would ask us to destroy both of the old engines, which were already pretty much dead. But engines are not like a single item. So it's not quite the same as even like a phone these days, where it's, if it dies, the whole thing's dead. Engines are made up of like 100,000 parts. You can take them all off and you can service other people's engines with bits.
Yeah, the rules of this country are absolutely insane, and we've been surprised by them yet further since our engine story with smaller issues that just follow the same logic, which doesn't make any sense to us. And so I think, as we said in the video, normally when we would like ship something to the boat, we're technically importing it into the country.
Yeah.
But because we're going to leave again on the boat, we only have to, it's just a temporary import because we're going to take it with us. And so usually countries say, oh, you're a yacht in transit, you're a boat and you're leaving again. Well, then we won't charge you import duty. And that's as far as it goes. You just have to give them the paperwork that says, yes, I own the boat. And basically your visa that says, yes, I will be leaving soon. And they go, okay, that's fine. That's enough. Whereas here, that paperwork, they're like, yeah, but why are you bringing the thing in? Because it has to be like a replacement part for your boat, for something that has broken, not just an upgrade, and that is critical to your boat to be able to leave the country. So
yes, we found out if you have like a shackle, they don't let you bring that in yacht in transit because you don't need that to sail, apparently.
Yeah, even if you've got a shackle on your boat that's broken and you need it to be able to fly your Genoa or something, that doesn't count. So their sort of categories are very woolly and
yeah, it was interesting. So we had to kind of negotiate that, as you saw, and eventually that all got cleaned up. And I think we only waited a day or two for the new engines to arrive at that point.
So when we eventually got the signed off paperwork from customs that fine, we've seized your old ones and destroyed them, we'll sign them off now.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
They literally then like made a phone call and said, right, delivery guys, you've already loaded the engines into the truck, right? Okay, yeah, the paperwork's been cleared, you can go to the marina now. And then looked at us and was like, how long is it going to take you to get back to the boat? So we just had to absolutely leg it.
It was hilarious. Like Link was on full plane mode. Like we were bombing it around the corner from right up in Papeete back down to the marina, which I think is like a
6 kilometers.
6K, I think. Yeah. So we floored it, and I think we got there with like minutes to spare. And then, as you saw, this happy man came trundling along with 2 full engines on the back of a pallet truck. And we're like, wow, they're actually real. They exist.
Yeah.
And, Peter had been telling us, oh, they're on this boat. And we've been tracking them on AIS the whole time, on the ship as they were moving through. They went from Sydney to somewhere in the south of Australia. Then they went to New Zealand. And then we'd watch them kind of coming across the Pacific towards us. and then they were literally there. Which is, you saw the elation. It was like, yes, the engines are here. How do we install 2 engines?
Yeah. Yeah, like use it. We had figured out, at least we'd already figured out kind of how to use the chain hoist and how to tie that off to our boom, and the fact that the mast wasn't going to fall down if we lifted that weight. But it was so different when you're like, yeah, but I don't want to drop this thing. This is new and shiny and I love it. The old one, it was like, well, if we have to like beat a bit up or a bit falls off or something leaked, well, that's so fine. It's going out anyway. And
whereas these were like, we kept, as you saw, we kept them in the plastic wrap the entire time. So
I don't want to get a bit of rust on it from our chain hoist.
No way, keep them shiny. So we kind of reversed the process. We did everything in the water using the boom. We lifted the engine off the dock, swung it over, as you saw, very health and safety conscious, and then lowered them down, eventually getting them in. And the bit I don't think comes across in the videos very well. So our engine bay door is back here. The engine is all the way kind of here, pretty much. Almost exactly.
A bit further.
So it's like 7 feet,
yeah,
8 feet, something like that, that we can lower it down, and then we have to move it 7 or 8 feet horizontally. And you can't put it down on anything. So that's what you're seeing when we do this kind of crazy wiggly jigsaw maneuver.
Yeah, because it's not like it's a flat floor underneath what we're doing.
No.
There's like, I mean, the boat itself is a curved hull, but then there's like stringers built in, and then there's like the prop shaft and the coupling sticking up. And then the way the engine sits anyway, the feet sit on the side and the sump pan comes lower. So we couldn't, even if it had been a flat surface, we couldn't pause to let the engine sit and then change the lines over or fix them to a different point. So it was such like a logical puzzle.
It was great.
That just constantly like, well, if we lift this here, and then what will the forces do here? And we just had to try a million
There was
things.
a lot of like, your end up a bit, too much down a bit.
Yeah.
There we go. But yeah, so eventually we kind of wiggled them into place, plopped them down to find out we'd mismeasured, and that they were
5 centimeters.
5 centimeters
like
lower than they needed to be. Yeah, 5 centimeters, 2 inches. 2 inches.
Yeah.
We can do imperial. So they sat perfectly lined up, but lower than they were supposed to be. So all of a sudden we're like, right, okay, we need to lift the engine beds, the kind of runners
we're not taking them out again. I can't put us through that again. We're not taking it all the way along and out.
It was wild. And then so we started the fiberglassing process of building these risers whilst cyclone Nat,
yeah,
sort of whirled over the top of us. So yeah, we didn't show a lot of the actual storm, I don't think, in the end, but it was quite entertaining. Trying to work through this tiny little inspection hatch above the engines, and like with the light on inside this bay while there's a storm whistling around the outside of the boat.
Well, there were like some days where we would get up and be like, right, okay, so the job list for today, we had like a whiteboard with the things that we had to get done, and then extra jobs if we had time. And we're like, right, so today we're going into the engine bay and we're going to install these engine beds, or we're going to start the alignment or whatever. And we would get up and be like, oh no, torrential rain all day. We can't open the hatch to be able to get in the engine bay because we'll just flood the engine if we do that. And so we took like 2 days of just being like, well, we just can't do anything. And after that, we just, right, 3, 2, 1, open the hatch, jump in, and then close the hatch and sort of shove a cushion in so that it can't close and lock us in, because that would not be ideal. And we were just like shutting ourselves inside the engine bay with this torrential rain outside, be like, it's fine, we'll just stay in here until we finish. Oh, the rain's easing off, right, let's climb out now.
I have to add in, someone just said, Scott Main was saying, where's all the junk that was here? So we are sat, as you've correctly guessed, I think, this is the starboard side, the helm's just here, and all of this area, in fact, the entire cockpit was just full of stuff.
Yeah.
Like bits of engine bay, bits of engine, everything. And we've been working our guts out clearing up the space for this. So there's still the odd patch of rust, all right?
If we just sit carefully in the right place.
I have to hide that bit too. There you go. Yeah, it's looking good though, right? Shiny. Yeah, so whilst this massive storm was going on, all of the stuff that was up here was getting covered in water. So hence the rusty marks are still kind of a little bit around. We're working on it.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But the cockpit is generally quite clear. There's still some stuff under the table I need to clear.
It was like, I mean, we've only hauled out the boat once when we were in Trinidad, and for that 7 weeks that we were on the hard, it was just like the whole boat becomes a work zone. And our month in the marina for the engine project was the same. Like this just became, at one point the table was our fiberglassing center, and then it was just where the tools lay out because we were constantly needing different tools, so there was no point in putting them away. And then this was just where all of the old parts got piled up and stored in case we needed them later.
Spare hoses, all sorts of stuff.
So it was just it was a mountain in the pile. It's been very, very nice, just slowly reclaiming our living space and be like, oh, it's a home again.
So yeah, once the engines were raised, we got those new engine beds in. By the way, hi to the Gold Coast. Thank you for waking up and joining us. I realized it was quite early to start. All this, by the way, is it's recorded. So if you drop off, you can always come back and watch the whole thing again later, and still leave us comments because we'll still see those, so we can keep track and comment back as well, which would be nice.
Yeah, we'll keep answering you.
But yeah, so once the engines were raised, we got those new engine beds in. You did all the glassing work to get them all pretty. That was hard work.
Yeah, and it was unexpected as well. If we knew that we were going to be fiberglassing some engine beds, like, I would have researched it. I would have looked at what materials were available and what was the best way to do it. And as it happened, it was just, well, we're paying every night that we're staying in this marina. So if we take a day off from work to research, we're paying for the privilege. So we just have to make fast decisions and get on with it.
Yeah, which again is where Patreon and general comments are really helping, because like you guys know this stuff.
Yeah.
So we were throwing out ideas and getting, do it in stainless steel. We looked into that. I would have to sell a lung, I think, for that one. Aluminium was another option at one point. I think Peter actually at Nanni Australia had suggested aluminium strips would work.
Yeah.
Great idea, but again, crazy expensive here.
Yeah.
And then we ended up on marine hardwood, essentially, which it doesn't compress and it's super strong. And then when we completely caked it and coated it with epoxy, it's essentially just a giant lump of epoxy now.
Yeah. And then we started out, we're like, okay, we're going to try and add some fiberglass onto the outside just to, not to hold it together because the pieces are epoxied together themselves, but just to like add that little bit of strength to make sure it's a single unit. And we said in the episode, oh, look at us. We even know the term for this type of fiberglass cloth. It's biaxial because it's like the strands go in two directions.
Although it's not.
And then it turns out it's not.
Yeah.
If you watched our episodes back in Trinidad where we learned to fiberglass, and Don, the amazing boat builder Don, taught us how to fiberglass, and he still watches these episodes, and we called him out in this one being like, sorry, Don, we're doing it wrong. And he emailed us and he was like, yeah, that's not biaxial. That's roving mat or something. And basically he agreed. He's like, yeah, there's nothing to hold those strands together, so as soon as you cut a piece they just like wibble like this. Biaxial would have been sewn in place and much easier to use, but they don't sell that here in this country, so we didn't have that option.
We improvised, that's what we do. So yeah, it was good. With that all done, the engines then got bolted in, as you guys saw, and then the challenging game of alignment, which is whoever understands this, it's a dark art, I'm telling you. You've got to lift what we've been using chain hoists to sling around the place. You're now doing like fine millimeter adjustments using chain hoists and like elbowing the engine around the engine bay.
But like, imagine you've got a heavy weight and it's fixed at 2 points onto essentially strings, and you lift it up.
Strong strings.
It can then swing around in pretty much every direction.
I think this is why people do it on the hard, though. We did it in the water where the boat was swinging around in every direction, and the engine just pendulumed.
Not only was there a cyclone coming through, but we were right next to the fuel dock. So all these fishing boats were coming in and out every day to refuel, and they just like absolutely floor it going past. So particularly at lunchtime, the whole boat would be doing this. And it's like, how are you supposed to lift an engine up and move it 1 millimeter and then drop it again? That, for you Americans, that's this distance here.
I don't know. That's like a 78th of a 100th of a mil.
Oh,
an inch. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how they measure that stuff. Very small. In Scottish, you'd call it a ball hair. Very small. A smidgen. Aye, a dud. So it was pretty precise, and we didn't have a clue what we were doing there either. And then, as again you hopefully saw, we somehow magically aligned these engines, and they have been pretty much perfect, actually.
Yeah, we've not changed the alignment since we did it. I think, as I said, we did it twice, and I still don't know how we did it.
Yeah, not a clue.
We did have our little measuring tool, our feeler gauge.
It looked good. Yeah, we had the tools.
I think we got them to less than 1 millimeter close, but when we wanted to do an adjustment, I was like, but how do we do that? I know that I want to change it, but it's impossible.
But weirdly, they're working. They've been running smoothly. We sea trialed. Also, we got off the dock, and that was very exciting and then slightly terrifying. Apologies, anyone, if you've not caught up with the episodes, there is one frustrating episode where we do a little bit of a cliffhanger. It had to be done. I promised you it had to be done. If you look at how the narrative goes, we basically couldn't crush it all into one episode. And then we were like, well, I mean, that is kind of the moment where we didn't know what was going to happen next.
We don't really like script out our episodes ahead of time. We don't really plan what's going to happen, but we knew that like, oh, in this episode it's going to be so great because we're going to film leaving the dock and going out to anchor, and we're going to end on like such a high of, after all this work, we're now back out doing it. And then we came into the anchorage and that one engine died, and we were like, oh wait, can we edit that out? Like,
I know, we honestly
people
thought about
gonna
it.
notice if we just pretend that didn't happen and we can still end on the high? And we were so desperate to like have this really good positive moment, and then we were just like, but we have to just film what happened. Sorry guys, we didn't mean that to go that way.
Exactly. We've always said we're going to keep Red Seas as honest. This is what happened, is what you see. We're not amping it up, we're not playing it down. It just is. And so yeah, we had the instinct to try and edit around, but we didn't. I'm going to take a pause. I just noticed on Instagram, the other stream we've got going, so YouTube has better audio, Instagram has a profile view, but I noticed Nanni Australia just said that they're going to be at the Sanctuary Cove Boat Show in Australia on the 23rd to 26th, and they're going to answer any questions and things. So
awesome.
Face to face, obviously. So yeah, just a heads up, if you're in Australia. I still don't have any of the geography. Sydney's that side, Perth is that side. That's as far as I've got. Sanctuary Cove sounds nice, but if you want to go to that boat show and chat to the guys there, they honestly, they know their stuff, and anything we say they can correct.
Yes. That's very appropriate.
So there you go. But that was just a side note. So yeah, so once we got on anchor, we had Theo, our friend, came and helped us out with the dinghy to back down again.
Oh, that timing was so lucky. He was coming out to celebrate, and he was like, oh, you under your own power? Ha ha ha, because I had to help you last time. And we were like, can you help us again?
Not really help. And yeah, it turned out, I think, did we show this in the episode? We turned out the problems?
Well, we didn't film them because we were so exhausted from trying to fix the engine, and we tried a bunch of times to fix it, and it's really difficult to film a boat project when you don't know how long
what the problem is
it's going to go on, because you never know which bit to film for when it's going to work. And so we didn't end up filming it very well, so we mentioned it very briefly at the start of the next episode when we like sea trialed over to Maria. We were just like, by the way, we fixed it. It turned out to be an airlock, but we never really explained it.
No, we didn't. So we can explain it in more detail now. I just want to say, Rick Donner says millimeter is 0.0393701 of an inch.
Oh, I'll remember that.
But you guys do these things in like
fractions is the word you're looking for.
in lines. So what the heck is that? That's like 72, 112. I don't know. Anyway, a millimeter is more precise. But yes, so the airlock. Basically, to give you guys the full story, essentially what we have is from our fuel tank, we have a fuel hose that's copper, and it comes all the way to the engine bay back here, and then it goes into a thing called a Raycore, which is basically a very fancy diesel filter. And then when it leaves the filter, it goes down a rubber hose and connects to the engine. Our Raycores are original, so they're about 20-something years old now.
Yeah,
almost 20 years old. And they will have been maintained a bit in Indioka's previous life, but not very much. And I'll be honest, we hadn't looked at them very closely while we were on the boat. So basically what happened was the rubber gaskets on the top where the lid comes off, there's a rubber gasket in the lid and another one where there's a kind of securing bolt. We just didn't even look at that, and we bled the engine of air and pulled all the air through the system from when the hoses had been disconnected. But when we were running it, these new engines, they actually are performing properly. So they were drawing fuel through the fuel system properly, and it made the gasket on the top of that Raycore suck air down into the chamber. And the way I described it the other day was essentially the fuel's coming in, and then halfway down a bottle, there's a hose coming out, and that's what's going to the engine. And basically the diesel level was going down and down and down. So we ran them for like an hour.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine, but the level was slowly depleting until it got to just halfway down that hose. And then what was happening was air and diesel were going to the engine. So it's kind of trying to run and spluttering because it was being fed half air, half diesel when it should be getting all the diesel. And we took ages to work that out because Raycores, unfortunately, this area that we're talking about is not see-through. So you can't tell there's air in there until you open it.
You're going to admit to the...
Yeah, I have to admit. So I replaced the gasket, tightened it all down, thought, great, primed everything properly, all's looking good. Then we ran the engine. and it stopped again. I thought,
And that
"Uh-oh."
happened for many days.
Yeah, it kept going on. It was a bit of a pain. And then essentially, you mean like the fix, right?
Peeing back into the.
Oh, that part, yeah, I have to admit to that as well. So I went down and I'd be like, oh, this is really annoying. So I'd open the lid, I'd pour diesel in, and I'd watch it fill the Raycor, this little vessel, and then I'd watch it go down really slowly. Why is it going down? It's not going through the engine. That doesn't make... Pour a bit more diesel in, and watch it go down slowly. This doesn't make any sense. And I'd poured like, I don't know, half a gallon of diesel into this little cup-sized chamber, and I just kept pouring a bit at a time. Going, why is it still going down? And eventually realized that I'd left the valve to the tank open. I was filling our diesel tank, like whatever that is, 1 cup at a time. And I like pouring diesel, fill up the tank, pour diesel, fill up the tank. Shut that valve off and you can top up this system. Turns out that's something mechanics know.
Yeah. Well, now we've learned.
We've learned something now.
There we go.
So yeah, slowly we've been learning new things along the way. Nanny Australia are probably regretting ever working with us.
Lying the side down, sorry guys.
Absolutely. Oh, and actually conveniently, yeah, the fuel consumption, someone asked that on YouTube as well. Fuel consumption of our engines, they're at the N4.50. They're 50 horsepower, and they consume 2.2 liters an hour, which I don't know what that is in gallons. That's like half a gallon?
I don't know.
Five,
I don't know.
5. Yeah, they're the Google search, 2.2 liters in gallons. And yeah, basically they're really fuel efficient. In fact, they're more fuel efficient than the Yanmars that we used to have, even when they would have been new. So it's been a big bonus for us in terms of economy for the boat, obviously. And it means we can go further, which is a huge benefit for us, because on longer passages, as you saw in the Pacific, we carried 2 giant blue drums of diesel. And now we would need quite so large a drum, I imagine. So it's another big bonus.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So yeah, like that, when we sea trialed it, so we were in the anchorage just very, very near the marina, and then we fixed the airlock, and then we were like, right, now we're going to sea trial over to Moorea. And coming into that anchorage was like such an iconic moment. And we said at the time, like, we didn't film it very well, and I'm not quite sure why. We were just too excited, I guess, concentrating on it too much. But I think that's possibly the shallowest anchorage we have ever dropped the hook in.
It was so good.
But we could do it because we had full control, which we've not had for over a year. So like,
we were showing off. That's what we were doing.
When we were crossing the Pacific and we had an engine died, well, that's fine, because we'll just sail, and when the wind dies, we'll just drift for 3 days, and we'll just wait, and we're not going to hit anything because we're thousands of miles away from anything. So it didn't massively impact us in the same way
at that point.
But coming into like the tight anchorages or the shallow places where you've got to like, you know, maneuver quite carefully coming into a marina, it's a lot harder when you've only got one engine, and if the wind catches you, like we were saying earlier, and you start turning and you can't bring it back. We did admit slightly to running aground a little bit in Tahiti, because that exact same thing happened. We went into the sort of slightly shallower anchorage, and the wind just caught us enough that we couldn't pull it back, and it just pushed us onto a sandbar, and then we had to somehow get ourselves off.
Whereas on the anchorage we went to, we had 1 foot, 30 centimeters under our rudder, which is, I think, the shallowest we've ever done. So it was pretty sweet. Oh,
but
and there's a correction. I'm sorry. Nanny Australia are geniuses. They're actually helping us out in the stats here. Somebody had asked about the cubic capacity of the N450 engines. That's what is 2.2 liters. Excuse me. So, and as Rick has done the conversion, it's just over half a gallon in US terms, I guess. So yeah, they're not compact. They're heavy, big engines for us. 50 horsepower per side on this boat's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's certainly more than we need for pretty much anything we do. And they don't suck too much of our fuel supply, which is great.
Yeah.
Thank you for catching that. Sorry, I don't want to be spreading misinformation. Keep it on track. But yeah, so we arrived in that anchorage. It's the shallowest one I think we've ever done, other than running aground. And yeah, we're like, we've reached paradise, which I noticed. Who's it? Monica is here, who lives in Moorea, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's right. You can correct me if I got that wrong. And so yeah, you live in paradise. Seriously, it's a beautiful island.
Absolutely stunning.
And having been trapped in Tahiti for quite a long time, which sounds like a terrible phrase.
I know.
We'd been sat in Tahiti a long time by that point, and we like to travel. We're kind of caged birds at that point. And it's like a 3-hour passage to get to Moorea on our boat.
We'd been living for months anchored next to the airport in Tahiti, but just staring at Moorea with these beautiful sunsets going down.
Which
behind.
is a beautiful view.
It'd been our view for months, and then finally we were actually going there to see the beauty of it. It was amazing.
So good. So
but
yeah,
really it felt like it really did feel like starting again, like coming into that anchorage and not having to think, oh well, where's the biggest space that we can drop, and where's the place where we're definitely not near anything shallow, so that if we don't quite land the hook exactly where we want to, we're not going to end up in trouble and all this sort of thing. It was like, well, where do we want to go? We want to go right up in the shallows where we're going to see the sharks and the stingrays around the boat. Okay, let's go there. Oh look, we did it. It was great.
It worked. So good. So, and that was kind of our victory moment for us. It's like somehow we two clowns have managed to install two very, very shiny engines.
I've got no idea how.
Honestly, don't get it.
Every so often we just look at each other and we're like, do you remember that time that we installed two engines in our boat? Like, what? How can we say that? That's absolutely ridiculous.
How did we even get to that point? I don't know. It's very, very surreal. It honestly is. Which brings me to a point, and I wanted to raise this with everyone here actually. Graham, one of our patrons, so I don't know if Graham's around, but he'd asked us in Patreon if we'd named the engines yet.
We did talk about it in an episode, and I can't remember what names we said we were going to give them.
I mean, I keep doing that. Whose song is it? Groove Armada? Nanni N4.50s? I can't remember the name, but I keep thinking it should be Nanni N4.50s. But that would be very hard to keep track of. So what I wanted was maybe we could make it a little game in the comment section here,
we need a
or
campaign.
in some episodes.
What should we call our new engines?
We could give the engines some names.
And they need to be names that we can remember which one is port and starboard as well.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that might make things even trickier. So let's see how we go. But maybe I thought I'd throw it out there because we haven't named them yet. And we do like to name all the parts of the boat, as you know. We name fairly inanimate objects. So it'd be quite good to name the engines, given they're part of the journey now.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I figured I'd mention that. Someone else has asked if we can get power from the engines, which is a really good question. So you might remember we were celebrating when we unpacked them that they have 120 amp or 120 amp alternators on each engine, which is insane. The old engines had 80 amp alternators, I think, Hitachi 80s.
Yeah, I think so.
From memory. So they're much more powerful alternators, which in our case means that we can get our starter batteries charged in no time.
Yeah,
it's been really cool because essentially we can start and stop these engines all day long pretty much, and they seem to charge up instantly. So that's great. In terms of charging the house bank, the batteries we use day in day out to keep laptops running and instruments and so on, that is a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure if we'll do a video on it one day, or maybe we've mentioned it in the past. But basically, because we have lithium batteries for the house, lithium batteries they're not friends with alternators.
They're greedy. That's what they are.
They're very greedy. So yes, we can charge from the alternators to the lithium batteries, but we have to do it through a device called a DC to DC charger. So we have one for each engine, and basically it's kind of like a protection device. It sets up a wall, and it's only able to transfer so much power through it. So although we have
like a limiter.
Yeah, it's like a limiter. It stops the batteries from being able to be greedy beyond the alternator's abilities, and it stops the alternator getting super hot from being asked to provide lots of power. So that's the simplest way of explaining what a DC to DC is. Essentially, it means that although we have 120 amps in each engine ready and waiting to fire out, we can use 30 amps of that from each engine, so 60 total, can get fed into the batteries. So we can charge our house batteries from about 60 amps of power out of a total 240 potential, I guess.
Yeah.
We could do all sorts of fancy changes and add all sorts of cool controllers.
There's other ways and other solutions that we can maybe switch to later.
Someday, if we can save up. They're like $1,500 or something to do it. So it's quite an expensive journey to get there. But it's certainly a possibility. And everything is running on 12 volts. So yeah, the whole boat, our boat's not quite big enough. There is a move for the larger boats run at 24 volts. Or even 48 volts. Yeah. And there's a bit of a tide change going on, I think. More and more people, now that lithium has become quite cost effective, are now looking at the option of running 24 or 48. And if you're not techie, this will be really boring. But essentially, it just means that, you can run more efficient ways of doing power. But for us, we're about the right size, and it's actually very cost effective for us to do everything in 12 volts. So 12 volts, alternators, starter batteries, and house bank. Just for the geek among you. There you go.
Cool. Was there another Patreon question behind
Yeah,
that
there
screen?
was. Sorry, let me just move this over. There's a couple other questions coming in the thread as well. We'll catch them. Don't worry. We'll try and catch all of them.
Oh, Mike was asking, have you found the leak in your fuel system yet? So yeah, we sort of did it before we did the sea trial, and then there were another few issues, and we just have to hope that we've got it now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do another couple of tests. We just keep having to lock down these gaskets. They're just aged, so we're slowly finding these little mini leaks that have also been there forever.
Yeah,
but we never noticed.
but
so
we can only find it by basically going places. So that's not going to stop us going anywhere. We'll just keep underway, and if it never comes up again, then I guess we found it.
Yes, there's no problem. What's that phrase? Like if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. I don't know. Basically, no problem if we don't have an issue. We won't know it's there. Something like that. I don't know. It's been a long day for us. It's been a long month. On which point, Lauren Taylor, one of our other patrons, who I think you guys are here, right? You said you were representing Peoples. Yes, I think you guys
Graham
are here.
is here there too.
Oh, Graham. Hey, how's it going?
Graham is suggesting that we name our engines with the Gaelic term, which is the language that people speak in Scotland that we can't manage or read.
Oh man, it's so hard to read Gaelic because, like, okay, so if you can see that comment in the threads, basically Gaelic, every letter in the word depends if there's another letter. So an H is the sound of a V, but only when it's next to an M.
Yeah. You write a word and you're like, okay, I know all of those letters and how they sound, and then you're like, oh, but no, that one is too close, so it changes how you pronounce.
Oh, it's cousins with an L. That means it must be something else.
It's a little bit like Gaelic and Tahitian have split up the alphabet and just they're sharing it. So Gaelic is just every single consonant, shove them all together. It's like 26 letter long word, but it's just one. And in Tahitian, they've got rid of most of the consonants. It's all vowels, and you pronounce every single one.
Are you suggesting that Scotland and French Polynesia had a divorce?
Yes, they've separated their languages.
I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to try and say it. Apparently, the word for starboard is Reonag Bord.
I reckon it's Runovor.
What? That's and one word.
And port is port.
So... Oh, port. We can do port. Port's fine, but Runovor.
Yeah, because the B and the H is pronounced V.
A B and an H is a V.
Yes.
But M and an H is a V.
Yeah, H makes things into V's, but not everything. Anyway, moving on. There's our language lesson done for the day.
I prefer what we did at the end of the most recent episode, which I think only went to patrons, about the Jenny. Yeah, that's a patron episode. If you're a patron, you know the joke. If you waited to the very end of the episode, that's true Scottish for you. Just saying. Next week, anyone here who's not a patron and wants to hang around for next episode, you'll see what I mean if you stick on to the very, very end. But yeah, I was going to say Lauren's question was regarding flushing out fuel tanks and additives and things like that. So this is quite a popular question people ask about. Basically, diesel as a fuel substance can get something called diesel bug, which is essentially kind of like an algae growth in the diesel, or as far as I understand it. And so you can get little additives you pour in, like a cap full of biocide, I guess, or something, and it can treat the diesel. And obviously, we collect diesel from all sorts of parts of the world, so it's not always the cleanest diesel as well. So it can have bits of dirt in it and things like that. So yeah, if we were being responsible, we would have completely cleaned out, flushed out our diesel tanks and made them all sparkly new.
Yeah.
We didn't.
We've crossed our fingers. I'm sure now that we've said this out loud, it's going to come back to bite us, and you're all going to know exactly why in the future when we share an episode where we have to deal with that.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, I mean, part of the reason, to be honest, part of the reason is our diesel tanks are a whole journey in their own right. We are going to have to do something about our diesel tanks at some point.
Yeah.
I'm secretly hoping we can make it further west and to more civilization before we have to do it. Basically, like all of Indioko, we've been loving her back together. And the diesel tanks are 20 years old, and they're made of aluminium.
Yeah.
So basically, aluminium was a great choice because it's lightweight and it's easy to use, easy to bend into a fuel tank shape. However, over time, between aluminium and the odd bit of salt getting into the bilge and things, they start pitting. And actually, it's kind of a fun thing to take you back for a second. Right back when we first got Indioko, it was December 22nd.
Yeah, the day we bought the boat was December 22nd.
Yeah.
And then this was December 29th.
December 29th, we woke up one morning to find that one of the fuel tanks had exploded.
Hooray!
So this is the best day of owning a boat, so you buy one, right? Not so much. Basically, the tanks are of an age where they pit, which means pinhole leaks start to appear on them. And then essentially, we'd filled the tanks thinking we were being responsible, brand new boat owners. And that extra pressure and weight in the fuel tank just meant it went, and like a colander, it just emptied itself. And so we actually ended up with the fuel tanks out in the cockpit, and we had to sand them all down, or sand one of them all down and clean it up. And then we painted it in epoxy as kind of a stopgap. We did filler and then we epoxied it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing to this day. That's what's keeping our tanks in the right shape. So there will be a day in which we'll have to change the tanks out for probably plastic.
Yeah.
I think is the way to go. Certainly a more modern approach. But again, it can be quite costly. So we've not done that yet. So for the time being, we have our slightly mucky, slightly leaky. They're not leaking.
They're not leaking.
They're not
They
leaking.
somehow have survived the last 4 years with a
great.
very temporary. That was the first thing that we repaired on the boat, which was like oh wait, I didn't see this coming. Is this what boat ownership is? Like a problem comes up and you
Nightmares.
have to fix it, and you're like,
Yes,
I've
it is.
never worked with aluminium before. I don't know how on earth would you go around fixing a fuel tank? But somehow we made it work.
It seems to have worked. So long story, we've been lucky enough we haven't experienced any diesel bug or any algae growth as of yet. Our fuel has come through pretty clean every time.
Yeah.
The Raycore filters do a great job of making sure the fuel going to the engines are clean. Is clean. And when we do fill ups, we tend to be a bit careful. We do fill up our jerry cans, our yellow bottoms first most of the time. Bit of wind coming through, sorry guys. So we tend to fill those up, and we can actually look in there, and if we can see any little flakes of dirt or whatever, we have got a filter funnel that we could use. So we try to be sensible, but we've not yet got to the stage of having to pour in additives and things to keep things alive.
Yeah.
But maybe we should start doing that now that we've got nice engines to look after.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, might add some extra filters. 4 Raycores in a row, each of different filter sizes. I think the filters in the Raycore right now are like 2 microns or something. They're absolutely tiny.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is
Like,
quite small.
It's basically smaller than our water maker
Yeah.
filters. So
Yeah.
they should be good to catch all the bad stuff. That's the plan anyway.
Fingers crossed.
There's been a couple more questions coming in as well. I like the fact there's a Gallic-off. I don't know what you call a Gallic, like battle.
Yes.
Although I do like the suggestion of port and sherry. That's quite fun. Port and sherry.
Nice.
Ooh, that might be a winner. We'll see about that. Where was the extra Gallic-off? Someone said, hey, what about this?
Slange and var.
Slange
and var.
Slange and var. Oh, that's quite good too. I like, yeah. Oh, we're having an issue with
I like
Slange
that.
and var. That might work. Who might think the var is Russian though, I guess. So Scott, diesel bug, I don't know if that kind of summed it up. Basically, it's like my understanding of it is it's an algae that grows in the diesel. So like a sludge. And then what happens is that gets picked up by the fuel system, and then it can clog up your filters, or really bad, it can go all the way to the engine and it'll clog up the injectors, which is where the fuel actually gets shot into the cylinders. So you end up having less fuel getting to the engine. It doesn't combust as a result, and then the engine conks out. So essentially, it's slime in the fuel, or at least that's what I understand it to be. If anyone knows better, we never claim to be the experts, as you know. So you can always correct us. Huey and Dewey come to mind. That might work. Personal Cheryl. There's some great names coming in here. Okay, we have to write these down later. We're not going to lose them.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I'm trying. Oh, someone does actually know more. Diesel bug falls into the categories of bacteria, molds, and yeasts. There you go. So you can make what's the spread everyone likes? Vegemite. You can make Vegemite out of diesel bug. Or mold. Well, we have enough mold on the boat, so maybe we do have diesel bug.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, okay, we'll look into it. But yeah, so we've been learning an awful lot about diesel and mechanics and engines in general.
Yeah.
Through this whole journey. I mean, we've never admitted to being experts. I hope that's clear. And I mean, if it isn't, you need to watch the episodes again. We clearly are not experts, but we've learned a lot along the way, which has been great.
Yeah, we definitely have, more than I perhaps realized
Or
when
wanted
we
to.
agreed to start this process.
Now it feels like if someone had an issue on the next door boat, we could actually go over and be of help. Whereas before we'd like, have you tried checking the battery? Turn the key. Let's see
Yeah,
what
I
happens."
think when we had the airlock issue, I surprised myself that we were both able to like think logically through the system and pitch ideas to try and to check. And I was like, oh look, we're both like, I'm able to make a suggestion. That's what I'm
It counts.
trying. Look at that, I know some things. So
Oh, the diesel bug
Yeah.
apparently is a significant issue in the Caribbean and US Southeastern. Water layers. See, yes, this is what I'd heard. So to finish up the diesel bug thing, I'm sorry. This is interesting. So basically the way it tends to form, okay, it's interesting to me.
I didn't say anything.
That look is very saying, please stop talking, Ian. This is a bad thing. I will wrap it up quickly. But basically, yeah, diesel bug forms most often actually in the condensation in the top of the tank. So basically, if your tanks aren't full to the brim, quite often it's in slightly colder or
like variable
temperature climates. So essentially, if your tank is slightly low, then some evaporation can take place for any water that got in with your diesel, and it will build as condensation on the top of your tank, and then the bug can start to grow, and then it basically starts dripping into your tank, or in the layer of water on top of the diesel, it can grow there as well. So a bit like a scummy pond of
delightful.
Diesel. So yeah, it can be a real issue. But yeah, places like the Caribbean, southeast, US, that makes sense. The temperature can fluctuate in the winter and the summer quite far, so that can be a problem. So a lot of people will like top their tanks up to the very top when they winterize the boat, so that there's no space for that water to form or that bug to form. So yeah.
But don't worry, I'm going to rescue you all now from Ian's diesel chat. I just saw a question that came through a little while ago from Rod saying, "Are you coming to Australia?" Because we must have been talking about
civilizations.
There we are.
Probably going to civilization.
But that's we could maybe move on to our
big
plans and
all right,
plans
let's wrap
and what
to
we're
that.
doing, because we have always said that we don't have a plan. Essentially, while we were in the Caribbean, we moved at roughly like 1 month per country, and then we would move on.
We planned one country ahead.
Yeah, well, I always said when we get to a country, if we know like where we're going after this, that's all I need to know, and then we can just make the plan up as we go ahead. So as we go along. So our plans were only ever 30 days in advance of where we are.
Then we crossed an ocean, and it took 40 days, so we had more time to think.
And we knew that there was so much to see in French Polynesia that
someone just said Australia civilization stretch. I'm not getting involved. Carry on in the comments.
You've seen where we are now, right? That's like the height of civilization to us.
Oh, burn. I'm gonna leave that one be. Sorry, carry on.
But yeah, so we came to French Polynesia, and it's such a massive country, and we knew that we would want to spend 12 months here. And so yeah, our plan for kind of planning ahead by only 1 month didn't really work anymore.
Not even.
So technically, we've been here for our 12 months now. Our visas, in fact, run out on Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday's the expiry, and we really, really hope that they extend it.
Yes. So as you will see in next week's episode, slight spoiler alert. It's, if you don't want to know this, close your ears for 2 minutes. We have decided that our time in French Polynesia, although it's been amazing seeing what we've seen, we haven't seen nearly as much as we had hoped before we arrived, before we knew what was going to go wrong with our engines.
Absolutely, yeah. And we kind of had to hurry our way through the Tuamotus to get to Tahiti in time.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get to experience some of the amazing parts of this country.
And so we have decided to try and extend our visa for another 12 months. So we want to basically have a do-over year in French Polynesia. We want to actually do all of the off-grid remote exploring that we envisaged for last year and then weren't able to do, because our choices of going to like the different atolls in the Tuamotus was limited by which ones were safe enough to do on one engine.
Yeah.
And as we've seen just from anchoring in Moorea, it's like, oh, now we can go where we want to go. So
we can go where no one else goes. That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
Because we're stupid and brave. Or both, or one. I'm not sure. Either way, we don't necessarily always go to the point on the map where everyone says they go. We try and go to somewhere different each time as well. And with one engine, there was just a lot more risk for, if anything went wrong, there's no one around. Whereas now we have two engines. We're like, yeah, we can be stupid and go to places no one else anchors. Let's go see some stuff no one else knows about.
So that's basically our entire plan. We're like, we haven't thought ahead beyond that at all, but we are hoping, we've not actually heard confirmation yet, but we are hoping to spend another 12 months here, and we hope that we're here before Wednesday, because otherwise we'll need to leave very, very suddenly. But yeah, that's the plan. We're going to do 12 months more here, and then we will need to leave because our boat will get taxed if we don't get it out of this country.
Yeah, so they end up importing the boat, which we don't plan to do.
No, we do want to keep moving and see the rest of the South Pacific and whatever else we can think of. But,
as our friends that I know for you who've just popped up have pointed out, FP is the size of Europe. I mean, it really is. I actually have a really cool map on my phone which shows the Society Islands on one side sitting over like the UK and Portugal, and the
Marquesas.
No, down the bottom. The Gambier Islands are like down in Turkey, and the
Yeah, they've, like,
Marquesas are up in
it's
Norway.
overlaid a map of French Polynesia over the top of Europe, and you can just see the size. Although the landmass is a lot smaller,
Yeah,
the
but it's
size
so
is
spread out.
absolutely massive.
So you're quite right. Yeah, it's the size of Europe. We should take our time. We should enjoy it a bit more and show you guys all of that incredible space. So yeah, we're hoping to explore a bit more and use our time better. Now
Yeah.
we hopefully have extended. Otherwise, we're here illegally as of like 2 days from now.
Wednesday, yeah.
3 days from now. So fingers crossed that comes together.
Yeah. I've just seen a question here from Sailing SVEOT saying that now you've rehabilitated a major system with your engines, do you feel less anxious about repairing things on the boat? Because we know that everything is already broken on a boat anyway. And that's so true. It's like as soon as the engines were done and we're like, right, okay, there are still a million other projects that we have to do. There's many other things that are still broken on the boat. But we don't need to be in Tahiti anymore. So let's go. Let's get moving. And
well, we've actually found that. Yeah, we kind of started to realize that if you look at the last 3 years or whatever it is of episodes, all the episodes, the thing we said at day one was we didn't want to be the boat that sat tied to the dock saying, someday I'm going to slip the line just as soon as I've finished X.
Yeah.
And so if you watch the episodes, for the last 3 years, we've constantly been moving and installing projects as we go. So we installed a water maker while we were sitting underneath the pitons of St. Lucia, you know, a World UNESCO site, and we were installing trampoline nets on the front of the boat. It's just we like to do stuff as we go rather than being in the marina, frankly. So I think we have plenty more projects to come. Trust me.
Yeah.
Some big, some small, some fun, some just repairing. But we figure we're just going to keep traveling, adventuring, and repairing, as it were, like loving the boat back to one piece. So we'll just keep going, doing that, I think, is the plan.
Yeah, but I think doing the engines.
Oh wow, thank you guys. EOT, you guys rock. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you.
Texas is the size of Europe.
What?
That's ridiculous.
Are you kidding?
You've got too much space.
You got to give some away. New Mexico, right next door. They can do a little more. Wow, that's crazy.
But yes, in answer to your question, I think it has given us the confidence that even though being in Tahiti to do the engines was good because it meant that we had the resources there. I know it didn't always look like it, but compared to the places we normally live, that was like, woo, big city.
It really was.
But we still did everything ourselves. So the resources didn't mean that we were then having access to or just paying other people to come and do the work. So it has given us the confidence that it's like, well, we may as well just get stuck into something because, yeah, so far we've pretty much always found a way to get ourselves out of the problem that we found ourselves in.
Absolutely.
We might not like do the repair properly, but we can usually make it some kind of better.
The way I would phrase it is, if you look over the time we've been on board, the only time we've used an outside person, resource supplier, was Coppercoat. And
we all know how well that went.
So we tend to do stuff ourselves. So, and if you haven't seen that episode, there's, I think, 2 episodes on Coppercoat somewhere back in the catalogue, as it were. And it's a little adventure in its own right.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not to say we haven't had assistance. So we had people like John who taught us how to fiberglass.
Yeah.
The guys at INAF have been insanely helpful in navigation and just getting the boat. Well, we're going to talk about this in a future episode, but like Indioko is like the most advanced boat on the planet, and she's 20 years old. It's an interesting sort of contrast there.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that at some point in the future, I think, hopefully fairly soon.
Yeah.
But they've been integral in our kind of journey. And you guys, everyone who's commenting and watching and contributing in the comments section, that's been huge. Like, we've learned so much from you guys in that process. So while we may not like have the money to throw at someone to say, go fix my boat, you're standing next to us, you know, you're helping us through the problems.
It's just started raining.
No!
And we need the boat to swing around because I'm getting soggy here.
Well, that might be our wrap up. Hang on, is it a long? It's quite rainy. We'll go until we're rained off. How's that? Or we can call it a wrap. If you guys have any more questions, now is your chance in the comment section. Quickly slam in those questions, and we will answer them whilst we start slowly trickling with rain fall over our faces.
The only last thing, somebody asked a question much earlier, and I've lost it now, so I can't see who it was. And I thought I'll try and remember to come back to that at the end. Lots of you have spotted that our subscriber number has been creeping up.
Oh, yes.
And we are getting
it was Denise, actually, I think,
relatively close now, I think, to almost hitting 10,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane.
It's insane to imagine.
Yeah, somebody was asking, there's the rain.
More rain.
I'll say it quickly. What are we going to do to celebrate the 10K? And we don't know. So fire us your ideas of what should we do to celebrate if and when we hit that number, because that's absolutely ridiculous and we could never have imagined it. So we need your ideas of what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're what's that? 371 subscribers away, which is really close in our heads. So that's amazing.
Counting down.
And then there's a couple other quick questions coming in. So this is good. Next boat project we're going to tackle. We're actually going to film. Oh, the windows are open inside.
Oh, 1 second, I'm coming back.
We're actually going to tackle a couple of quite fun projects in the near. I don't want to spoil them because they're going to be fun to share when we do them. But yeah, probably in the next 3-4 episodes, we're going to attack some more kind of hands-on toolsy ones, but not quite as intense as the engines. I think the engines are probably going to be the most intense install.
Oh, I
for a
hope
while,
so. Yeah, I don't have the energy to do that again.
So great question. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah. In fact, Denise, you'll find out before everyone. We just spent a lot on it on 2 engines
last time. The rain is now stopping. We're just getting dripped off.
Yeah, we would love to do it again, and we have had a few people ask us already if we can make it for various reasons. So I don't know. Fingers crossed we can find a way. But it's from here. It's like $2,000 to get there, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to play around with that and see if we can figure out a method. We will. And yeah, if you're going to be there, I don't know. Are you going to be there? Let us know. If so, we will see you there as well. Any other questions coming in? So my plan of attack. It's raining pretty hard. Yeah, it's dying off a bit. But you live in Scotland. You know what it's like. Rain shouldn't stop you. Oh, I'm sorry, Denise. It wasn't you. Asked Anne Reed. Good on you. Sorry. You were asking about whatever that question was earlier. Paul getting a blur because they're rushing now. 10K is absolutely loitering. We are desperate to get. It's a massive rushing engine episodes.
Yeah.
And then I think a bunch of people were like coming on board for that storyline, and now they're going, well, what are you going to do next? So we need to capture the interest and excitement of the next 700 people.
But hopefully, as we kind of get moving again, will
400 people.
Get some more people on board with us. But go tell people, if you watch this and you like it, go tell your friends and whoever else who might be interested to give it a try, and we'll see if we can get those last 371.
My mouse got a bit wet in the rainstorm.
It's like pouring out.
It's actually dripping. Yeah. I realized the comments were scrolling funny, and I was like, oh, why are you doing that?
If we accidentally end it, we're not
it's all on
intending
purpose.
to.
Cool. And then the last question I think I saw there was about doing visas online. Weirdly, no, they don't let you do that.
Yeah, renewing our visas, that is in next week's episode. So we will show you the hilarity of trying to do that and failing miserably.
Let's see how that went. It was, we did our best.
Yes, but hopefully that'll all go through.
There we go. Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know, we maybe the awards at Annapolis. That was the other thing that was mentioned there. That'd be fun to get to again. I don't think we'd ever win anything again. I think we won our one.
But it was such a good night. Like, it would be so much fun to see everybody
and support all those channels as well, because like the number of new channels that turn up at that show is so good to see everyone trying to build episodes and launch. All right, I think we need to go try out inside. We left all the windows inside open during that storm, so yeah, we might have a bit of mopping to do. In fact, I can see it dripping from the ceiling. Oh dear. Boat life, right?
Oh dear.
So there we go.
Right.
Wait, hang on. Oh yeah, Dutch Globetrotter. Okay, seriously.
There we go. Okay, this is our call out. If anybody is on Facebook in the YouTube Sailing Channels group, that's like a group for people who like watching YouTube sailing channels and they like sharing their favorite.
They saw an episode or they saw something funny or interesting.
Whatever. And we want to be talked about more. It's so much more effective if you guys post in that group about us than if we post ourselves.
We do it and people are like, like we'll get 2 or 3 people say, yeah, maybe I'll watch. Some of you guys are the people who are kind enough to say, yeah, maybe I'll watch. If you guys go in and say, hey, did you see the recent episode from blah? Or anyone heard of this channel? Or any of that stuff. It's so cool if you can do that. That's so
talk about us online would be like such a massive help to our channel. That's how we grow.
So we can be cheeky to ask you to do something like that within YouTube. I was saying, wow.
Oh, I think we just paused.
Oh, maybe we dropped a little for a second.
Internet was done, but we're back. Yes, so Instagram is growing as well, so share on there.
The name of the group, that group in particular, is YouTube Sailing Channels.
YouTube Sailing Channels.
That's it, just YouTube Sailing Channels. But you know, feel free to share it all over Facebook. We don't mind.
Oh dear.
I'll put a link in for the group. I could try to do that. I don't know if I can do that here. Actually, maybe you could do it for us, because I'm not sure I can do it from here very easily. But somehow a link to the group will be posted.
Yes, exactly.
Graham's just written it there for everyone's context. So if you're searching for it, you'll find it that way as well.
Yeah.
And maybe Dave will be nice enough to let you in, because he's an admin.
He's an admin, so yeah.
He'll look after you. All right.
Cool.
Sorry about the dropout there. I think we swung slightly in that little storm. Typically, storms spin the boat a little bit. But yeah, at that, I think we've probably borne the back legs off all of you. So thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Oh, that was really fun. It was so
Thanks
nice
so
to
much.
see so many familiar names popping up in the comments and on both cameras here.
Yes.
So thank you for coming over and hanging out. And yeah, keep commenting on episodes.
Keep hanging out, keep chatting, because we do catch, I hope you realize we catch all the comments. And obviously Patreon, we talk more back and forth on the comments, and YouTube will always catch them and try and answer questions that come up. So just the more we hear from you, the more we realize we're not all alone out here, because
we're kind of all alone out here.
We need you guys. Sound like complete loners now. All right, on that point, before I ramble way too much, thank you so much. If you've never subscribed to us, hit the subscribe button. Someone just said do a thumbs up. I'm sure that's a good thing too.
Yeah, do all the things.
All the buttons and stuff. We never say that in episodes either. We try to hide away from it. But Patreon, tip jar if you like, thumbs up, shares, likes, whatever other buttons. I don't know what they are.
All right, we will be back on your screens next Sunday with our visa stuff and other things, and then carrying on the adventure.
There you go. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Thank you. And any more chats, questions, comments, fire them over to us somewhere. We'll catch you.
We'll be here.
All right, I'm going to sign it off. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.